She was just 3 years old, a girl with big eyes and a sunshine smile on a family holiday that should have been full of laughter and lazy days by the sea. But on the night of May 3rd, 2007, everything changed. In the sleepy coastal village of Praia da Luz, Portugal, while her parents dined just meters away, Madeleine McCann vanished from her bed and into thin air. No cries, no witnesses, no clues that made sense. And in that one night, quiet, ordinary and unremarkable until it wasn't, the world was pulled into a storm of sorrow, suspicion and unanswered questions that still rage almost 2 decades later. What happened to Madeleine? Who took her? Or was it something else entirely? This isn't just a missing child case. This is the story of a wound that never healed, a family trapped in limbo, and a mystery that became a global obsession. When the McCanns arrived in Praia da Luz, they were like any other family, seeking escape from the routines of daily life. Kate and Gerry McCann, both doctors, both driven, had planned a relaxing trip with their 3 children and a group of close friends. They booked apartments at the Ocean Club Resort, a whitewashed complex nestled near the Algarve's golden beaches. Alongside them were their friends, known later as the Tapa 7, all professionals, all parents. It was a week meant for relaxation. Tennis games, poolside chats, and dinners under the stars. But beneath that tranquility, something dark was waiting. The night of May 3rd was supposed to be just like the others. The adults followed their usual routine, putting the kids to bed around 7:30, then gathering at the resort's tapas bar around 8:30. Apartment 5A, where the McCanns were staying, was located just 55 meters from the restaurant, a stone's throw away. But those 55 meters would become the chasm between a safe world and a nightmare. The children were asleep, the patio door was left unlocked for easy access, and the parents checked on the kids every 20 to 30 minutes. It was a rhythm they believed was secure, familiar, but it wasn't enough. Gerry McCann checked first at around 9 p.m. He saw Madeleine asleep beside her younger twin siblings, Sean and Amelie. Everything seemed fine. A friend, Matthew Oldfield, offered to do the next check at 9:30, but his check was incomplete. He didn't step into the room. He didn't see Madeleine with his own eyes. He listened at the door, heard no cries, and moved on. 10 minutes later, Kate McCann went herself. What she found shattered her world. The bedroom window was wide open. The shutter was raised. Madeleine's bed was empty. Her favorite toy, Cuddle Cat, was lying alone. The air was still, but something felt broken. Kate screamed, "Madeleine's gone!" A cry that tore through the silence of the night. Panic spread. Staff, guests, and locals began searching. Flashlights flickered. Names were shouted into the dark, but it was too late. Madeleine was gone. What happened in that small window of time remains one of the most haunting questions in modern history. The initial investigation by Portuguese police began almost immediately, but it was messy. The apartment wasn't sealed as a crime scene until the next morning. Dozens of people had already walked through it. Fingerprints, fibers, possible DNA, contaminated, lost, or never collected. The Border Patrol wasn't notified until hours later. For a case that needed precision and urgency, it received chaos and confusion. And as the hours passed without answers, the world began to notice. Within days, Madeleine's face was everywhere. On news broadcasts, in newspapers, plastered across internet forums, public figures spoke out. David Beckham made an appeal. The Pope met the McCanns. Celebrities donated to the search fund. 1.8 million poured into Madeleine's fund within the first year. Over 80 million people visited the official website. The world didn't just care, it became obsessed. But obsession has a dark side. As pressure mounted, suspicion began to shift. Not toward a stranger lurking in the night, but toward Madeleine's own parents. It was unthinkable. but it happened. In September 2007, 4 months after the disappearance, Kate and Gerry McCann were named official suspects, arguidos, by Portuguese authorities. British sniffer dogs had alerted to the scent of blood and human remains in apartment 5A, and in the boot of a rental car the McCanns had hired weeks after Madeleine vanished. DNA samples were taken, experts were flown in. Portuguese police began to suggest that perhaps Madeleine had died in the apartment and that her parents had covered it up. It was a theory that shook the public. How could the parents, the grieving, devastated parents, possibly be involved? But the questions kept coming. Why had they left their children alone that night? Why was the door left unlocked? Why didn't Oldfield go all the way into the room? Why did the cadaver dog alert in Kate's closet? Or in the boot of a car they didn't rent until nearly a month later? The media, once sympathetic, turned vicious. Headlines screamed guilt. Paparazzi followed the McCanns everywhere. Strangers online called them monsters. The scrutiny was relentless. But the science was less certain. The DNA evidence? Inconclusive. The dogs? Controversial, even among experts. And there was no body, no confession, no solid proof. The McCanns denied everything. They fought back, suing tabloids for defamation and winning. In July 2008, they were cleared of all charges, but the damage had been done. The public was divided, and the search for Madeleine, once fueled by unity, became clouded with doubt. Meanwhile, leads poured in from around the world. Sightings in Morocco, Spain, Malta, children seen with strangers, a blonde girl in a marketplace, another in the back of a van. But none were Madeleine, and each false hope added a new layer of heartbreak for the family and investigators. Witnesses came forward. One woman, Jane Tanner, reported seeing a man carrying a child near apartment 5A around 9:15 p.m., a sighting that would become central to later sketches and theories. But questions lingered. Could she really see clearly in the dark? Could it have been someone innocent? And what about the man who lived nearby, Robert Murat, a British-Portuguese expat? Murat was the first to be named an arguido. He was eccentric. He inserted himself into the investigation, offering help. Police found his behavior strange, but in the end, there was no evidence against him either. He was cleared in 2008 and later won a libel case against several newspapers. Years passed and the case grew colder. But then came a new name, a new face, a new suspect. His name, Christian Brueckner, a convicted sex offender and drifter who lived in the Algarve around the time Madeleine vanished. German police claimed his phone had pinged near the Ocean Club the night of the disappearance. They alleged he had confessed to knowing what happened to Madeleine. He had a long history of violence and abuse. On paper, he looked like the perfect suspect, but proving it, that's another story. In 2022, he was formally named an arguido, an official suspect. Yet to this day, no charges have been filed against him in relation to Madeleine. The evidence, again, was circumstantial. His DNA wasn't found. No witnesses placed him with Madeleine. He remains in prison for other crimes. But for the McCanns and the world, his name now lingers like a shadow. So what happened that night? Was Madeleine taken by a stranger in the dark? Did she wake up, wander off, and meet a tragic accident? Was she targeted by a human trafficking ring, as some theorists believe? Or did something happen in that apartment that no one wants to talk about? Theories swirl like smoke, but the truth remains locked behind a door no one can open. And while the world debates, her parents wait. Kate still keeps Madeleine's room exactly as it was. Her toys, her books, her clothes, all untouched. Every birthday, Kate buys her daughter a gift. Every Christmas, a stocking is hung. The rituals never stop, because hope, even in the face of cruelty and silence, refuses to die. The years passed, but the case refused to fade. It clung to the public consciousness with the same stubborn force that grief clings to a mother's heart. Madeleine McCann became more than just a missing child. She became a symbol. Her photo, those curious eyes, the soft fringe of blonde hair, was etched into memory. She was the girl the world couldn't forget, even as the leads dried up and hope began to thin. But for Kate and Gerry McCann, forgetting was never an option. Every milestone that passed, every birthday, every family trip, every moment where her laugh should have echoed, was a wound that never closed. They smiled for cameras. They issued pleas. But behind those eyes was a storm that never calmed. In 2011, the case took a new turn. Operation Grange was launched by the Metropolitan Police in the UK, not to reopen the case officially, but to review the investigation and look for missed opportunities. And there were plenty. The Portuguese police had been criticized from the beginning. Poor handling of the crime scene, missed forensic evidence, failure to alert Border Patrol in time. There were contradictions in statements, delays in collecting data, and a general sense that time had been lost in those crucial first hours. Operation Grange was meant to fix that, to re-examine everything with fresh eyes and new resources. And for a while, it looked promising. New EFIT images were released. A new appeal was launched. Interviews were conducted across Europe. More suspects were questioned, but the core truth that no one knew where Madeleine was remained painfully intact. Then came the search of Arade Dam. In May 2023, at the request of German authorities, Portuguese police returned to the region with search dogs and sonar equipment. They combed through the terrain, digging, analyzing, and hoping. The focus was once again on Christian Brueckner, his past, his proximity to the resort, his alleged conversations in prison. It felt like the pieces might finally connect, but when the dust settled, all they had were unconfirmed materials. No body, no proof, no closure, just another chapter in a story that had already stretched too long. As the investigation trudged forward, public opinion began to fracture. Social media, once a tool for spreading awareness, transformed into a courtroom without rules. Forums filled with speculation. Anonymous accounts hurled accusations. Some insisted the parents knew more than they let on. Others believed Madeleine was still alive, hidden in another country, growing up without any idea of who she really was. Theories multiplied, and not all of them were grounded in reality. There were whispers of child trafficking rings, of high-profile cover-ups, of conspiracies that reached into politics and beyond. And with every new theory, the truth grew more obscured, lost under the weight of wild speculation. But through it all, Kate and Gerry stood their ground. Their marriage, tested by media attacks, police suspicion, and unspeakable trauma, endured. Their dedication to their daughter never wavered. They raised their twins, protected their privacy, and poured their energy into Madeleine's fund. They hired private investigators, followed every lead, and never stopped speaking her name. On what would have been her 18th birthday, Kate wrote about the ache of not knowing, of not being able to celebrate her daughter's adulthood, not being able to say goodbye if goodbye was even necessary. She still bought gifts, still kept the room the same. Because when you lose a child and don't know where they've gone, every day becomes a contradiction of hope and mourning. And then there was the media. The beast that once helped spread the word became something darker. Tabloid headlines didn't just report. They speculated, accused, and distorted. The McCanns won legal battles, but not emotional ones. No court ruling could undo the pain of seeing your worst moment turned into spectacle. No apology could erase the comments from strangers who thought they knew better. The Netflix documentary, intended to reignite public interest, was met with criticism from the family itself. They hadn't participated, and they felt it sensationalized a tragedy that needed compassion, not drama. Still, the case taught the world something. It reshaped how we talk about missing children. It inspired better border alert systems. It pushed for greater parental vigilance while traveling. It showed how digital tools, from age progression to facial recognition, could play a role in finding the lost. And it showed that even with millions of eyes watching, even with the best technology available, some truths remain painfully out of reach. The most painful part of Madeleine's story is its silence. There is no definitive ending, no grave, no confirmed suspect, no confession, only shadows. And those shadows stretch across every theory. Was she taken by someone who had been watching the family? Someone who slipped through the window while no one was looking? Was it a burglary gone wrong, with a child snatched in panic? Or was it something even darker, more methodical? An abduction planned by people who knew exactly how to disappear without a trace? And then there's the unthinkable. The theory that Madeleine died that night, and that someone, intentionally or not, hid the truth. The sniffer dogs that alerted to the scent of a corpse. The rental car hired weeks later. The DNA that seemed close, but not conclusive. These elements hang over the case like smoke, always there, always unresolved. And yet, with no hard evidence, no one can say for sure. Not the police, not the public, not even the McCanns. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a room frozen in time, a little girl's bed untouched, a stuffed animal resting against the pillow. It leaves us with a family still chasing clarity, still hoping that one day the phone will ring with something other than false hope. It leaves us with the image of Madeleine, smiling in her now famous photograph, preserved in time as the child who vanished while the world watched. And it leaves us with a choice. Do we turn away from the unanswered questions? Do we let the silence win? Or do we keep asking, keep searching, keep believing that somewhere someone knows the truth? Madeleine McCann is more than a headline. She's a daughter, a sister, a girl who deserved to grow up, to have dreams, to find her place in the world. Her disappearance isn't just a case file, it's a scar on the conscience of every institution that failed her. But it's also a reminder that even in the darkest of mysteries, hope can flicker. That justice delayed is not always justice denied. And that some stories, no matter how long they go unanswered, deserve to be told again and again and again until the silence finally breaks.